couple of questions here that are directly connected to that. Most people don't have $20, $30, $40,000 to do this. So there's a federal tax incentive program that helps a lot of people make this more affordable. Can you talk a little bit about that, please?
Yeah, so that's what's called like the federal tax incentive or the solar ITC. So as of this year, it is 26% of total installed system costs. So back to that like $25,000 number. The following year, you would get a tax credit for about $6,000 or whatever 26% of that would be, and it's a tax credit. So it's kind of like I'm no tax professional, but it's kind of like a write-off. So if you don't owe that much in taxes that year, you don't have the tax liability, you can roll it over for up to 20 years if you need. So many people are able to see some savings that way. And then many utilities will have other credits and stuff, but the small co-ops in our area often don't have any extra solar incentives. But like the bigger ones like Excel or Minnesota Power, they have some extra incentives.
Super, thank you. So that helps make it more affordable for the average user. Another common question related to this, because sometimes people have systems that generate more power than they actually need. So there's something called net metering that folks are curious about. Kyle, can you talk a little bit about net metering and what it means to be off the grid or connected to the grid?
Sure. Well, that gets into different kinds of systems, and a lot of that goes down to the kind of inverter you use. All inverters convert the raw solar power DC energy to AC, um, and then for a standard grid connected house, that inverter would then go to your breaker. It could be backfed through your loads and then to the grid. This is a very efficient way to go. It doesn't change the performance of using any of the electronics in your home. You can take from the grid and give credits to the grid freely, and your utility will track that. So if it's a sunny day and you're producing more than you're using in your home, you will be credited a particular amount, and that's left to state ordinances and so on. Minnesota and many other states will have a pretty fair policy where it's a pretty even give and take. You'll be compensated the same amount in which you pay. Not all states are like that. This doesn't apply to standalone systems. However, if your solar power is going straight to a battery bank, your inverter then is not connecting afterwards to the grid, but just straight to your loads, and you don't get any extra perks for producing more than you use that particular day. So it's not as efficient, but it might your site might call for it. Maybe you don't have access to the grid at a particular piece of property, and it still might be the way to go. Some people like it for just idealistic reasons, self-sufficiency. I can totally understand that. And there are also other kinds of systems. There's multi-mode systems too, which are big fancy inverters that are also usually a lithium-ion battery bank. So also not quite as efficient as a straight-up grid-tied system, because a portion of your power that your solar is producing is going to filling that battery bank 24/7 for the event in which there's an outage where you can keep certain loads powered. So there's a few different ways to tackle it, but that's the concept of net metering anyways.
Yeah, I can add one more thing, and so like with Minnesota Power or Crowing Power, I like using Crowing Power because there is very simple. Essentially, if in just general service with Crowing Power, you're paying about 11 cents kilowatt hour, and they will credit you a retail rate of 11 cents around. And so essentially, if say you have solar and you use at your house about 1,000 kilowatt hours, and then you produce 1,500, that first 1,000 is just kind of a one for one, and then the remaining 500 is credit for 11 cents. So that's kind of why they called it, I think that's why they call it net metering, because it's kind of the net average at the end of the month. And then at least with Crow Wing or Minnesota Power, you can just roll it over month to month until you call them and kind of cash out, or most people just keep the money in the system, and you'll overproduce in the summer and save on your electric bills all the way to the winter when your solar is not doing as good.
Thank you, guys. That sort of leads into the next question here, which was submitted from Daryl. Yep, I see Daryl is on. He's connecting right now. Daryl was curious if companies like Minnesota Power add another meter to your house, or like if they have just your house meter or also a solar meter. I'm hearing some echo.
I just admitted a few more people, so someone may need a mute.
Okay. So to get back to that question there was a question from Daryl wondering if Minnesota Power uses 2 meters, if there's a solar meter and a house meter, and then how that works with generating income for a system that creates more power than they need.
Yeah. So most cases, the utility, whether it be Minnesota Power, or Crow Wing, or Itasca Mantrap, or whoever, they will, if you don't have it already, they will install a bi-directional meter. So essentially a meter that can give or take electricity. And then they will also install a production meter. And that production meter is purely just for keeping track of exactly how much solar power is going through. It doesn't add an extra meter charge or anything to your bill. It's purely just so they have a one exact measuring device. So. And then I do see the second part of the question. How does a solar customer get compensated or rewarded for their generation of solar power?
Yep.
And I touched on that a second ago, but essentially, this is exactly how Minnesota Power does it. Like we have Minnesota Power at our office, and we have a very large array there. So I see the bills all the time. And essentially, you use 500 kilowatts in a month or kilowatt hours in a month, and you produced 1,500. That first 500 is a 1-for-1, and then that additional 1,000, they have a retail rate. So I think Minnesota Power, it's 8 cents, and like Crow Wing, it's around 11 cents, and that is just a credit that is on your bill. And with Minnesota Power and Crow Wing, at least, it just gets rolled over month to month, and it can go towards the other little things on there, like the what's it called? Like the meter fee. It's like $40. They just charge you every month, no matter what you do.
Right.
And say in the winter when your solar is not doing as good, maybe you have some credits built up from the summer or the fall that can help you out. And then you just, at least with Minnesota Power, like at our office, we just call about once a year, and they'll cash us out, write us a check.
Great. So you can have some credits to your bill or some cash back occasionally as well. Thanks for that, Simon. We've got a couple questions now from Michael. Kyle, this one I think is for you. Minnesota gets a lot of snow, obviously, and so does snow reduce the output of panels? And if it does, how do you mitigate that?
Yeah, absolutely. No illusions about it. You will not produce a lot of power when your panels are covered in snow. Well, you won't produce any. However, there's some factors to consider. The angle, the tilt that the panels are at is going to greatly affect how soon that snow is going to slough off. Because most of what a solar panel is glass. It has that like slick, dark glazing to it. I often notice that on a sunny day where you produce a lot of power, there's usually enough sun to cause that snow to shed off pretty pretty easily, but that might not be the same case for someone who doesn't have quite as steep of a tilt angle. We've found. So all in all, there is some loss every year, and a good industry standard figure for at least the upper Midwest, where we are here, is anywhere from 5 to 10% in loss that can be accounted for. But there are those, proactive measures. You can get out and you can brush them off. There are particular tools that people use for that. We try to provide our customers with tools like that. And then also taking into account angle and orientation. Yeah, it is what it is. It can't be avoided, but some people can be proactive about it, at least.
Yep. And February is actually one of the best months for solar if your array is clear. Because at least in central Minnesota, I feel like it's pretty clear. It's really cold. They do really well when it's cold out, and you get a little bit of extra reflection from the snow and everything. So it's not as bad as everyone makes it out to be. Honestly, the biggest factor is shorter days.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you get a huge snowstorm and it all gets buried, but
But if you clear them off, they work again. Yes.
yes, yep.
Okay. Okay, so then the next question from Michael is, are panels recyclable? There's a lot of folks who are environmentally minded here and like the idea of solar, but it's troubling to think about creating more things that go to the landfills. So Kyle, do you want to touch on that first, please?
Yeah, I've heard a little bit about this. It's an industry that prides itself on sustainability. Companies ought to have take back programs, or at least there's some mechanism, whether it's offered by the government to recycle solar panels at their end of year. It's not really, we're not seeing it as much of a problem currently, because most of the systems that are installed that are around have been installed within the last 20 years or so, and we all know that solar panels last a very long time. However, there will be a day where it may become a problem. Another 20 years or so down the line. Yeah, they are recyclable. Some companies, like in America, company specific, will have guarantees to take them back. There has been legislation passed in the Northwest, and in Washington State is the example I'm thinking of, where they are requiring solar panel manufacturers to have recycling as a take-back option. That was enacted pretty recently. They started talking about it in 2017, but now I think it's being enforced. Yeah, I mean, solar panels are made mostly out of, there's a lot of talk about silicon, the photovoltaic effect, the important compound in there, but mostly solar panels are glass, aluminum, plastic. These are all things we can recycle. And there are plants that specialize in this meticulous process, and they're able to recycle and create new products out of about 80% of the original weight of the of the of the panel itself going into the process. So it's not we have to see more of it here, and I like the concept of take back programs. I think naturally in the coming years we'll see it. People are going to have to start racing toward it, especially once the end of life on some of these early systems is going to come up.
And I have one more quick adder, that specifically in Minnesota, the MPCA, so Minnesota's Pollution Control Agency, they're actually working with MNSEA, which is Minnesota's solar industry agency, on creating a statewide program for panel recycling. It's nothing that will be developed in the next year, but definitely within the next 5 or 10, I think, at least in Minnesota, it will be very, very easy to recycle modules.
Cool. Exciting. You're muted, Jennifer. Oh, somebody. Something interesting in the chat.
Yeah, Jennifer, you're definitely muted right now.
Thank you. Thank you. Sorry about that. So in the comments, you can see a comment from our friend Chip here. A couple comments. One about a shovel for clearing snow off panels, and then also a link for information about recycling solar panels. So there are options right now as well. So thanks, guys. That was helpful. The next question here, we've got a couple questions from Bernie. John and Simon, this might be something for you guys. He says it appears that the average residential rooftop installations have decreased in recent years, even though the component prices are decreasing. So is that your perception?
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm curious where that info came from. At least in Minnesota, I think residential systems are still being installed a lot. Very specifically, like in Minnesota Power territory, it's very common right now. And I've only been here for 2 years, so I can't speak to the last 10, but we get a lot of inquiries, and people are very interested in residential projects, even as the tax credits may have decreased a little bit. So yeah, I don't know. Prices are going down. The pandemic has made that a little more challenging, as the cost of building materials and everything have kind of been all over the place. But all in all, it is getting cheaper, and I don't see it slowing down anytime soon.
Anything to add on that, John?
I don't have any statistics, but my impression is there's been a proliferation of solar contractors in Minnesota. There's been, some that have, come from the East Coast, and you can start to see the market filling up. So, and then that, competition is going to, help on the pricing front, and the biggest thing is the 26% tax credit staying in place. That would have been disastrous for the residential market if that had not stayed in place.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So the next piece of this is, what are REAL and REAL Solar doing to sort of keep promoting solar and help to make sure this market continues to grow?
Yeah, I mean, as far as Real Solar, we're just doing our jobs. I don't know. Of course, being one of the few installers in rural, north central Minnesota, we're just trying to do our best to keep our name out there and in a positive light, and do things like this. And we'll be at the Builders Show in Brainerd next weekend, and just being competitive and trying to keep our foothold in our little area.
Mm-hmm. And part of REAL's mission is to make sure that solar is accessible no matter income levels. So John, do you want to talk a little bit about like Solar for Humanity? That's one key way we're trying to get it on more households these days.
Oh, one of our, on the nonprofit side, one of our major goals is to increase our production doing habitat homes. So we're working on that. I'm going to be escaping my pandemic prison here in the second week of May, and there's 15 habitat affiliates in central and northern Minnesota, and I'm going to visit 11 of them. I'm talking to them about ways that we can keep at. It's peanut butter chocolate, solar to habitat houses. It's good for the environment. It helps with the, habitat families now pay mortgages as of 2016, and so it helps make them financially sustainable in the long run. And it's you get a lot of inquiries when you do a residential project in a smaller town or small city that hasn't seen a lot of solar. People get very curious because it's not like a theoretical thing anymore. So we're doing that. We're right now we're working very closely with the White Earth Nation, and we're in project development and creating a multiple partnership that includes training, on the job experience. It's going to weave in with doing habitat jobs. And it also includes starting a Native American owned general renewable energy general contractor. So we're starting to fill jobs, fill the marketplace, and then continue to work with Real Solar on projects that we can develop together. So I think we're at the beginning of a good period for this, at least from the nonprofit side of things. So I think we're going to get a lot of foundation support, and we're going to have a good next few years. And I've been seeing Jennifer Grant's had a couple questions.
Grant's had a couple questions. I'm not seeing.
Yeah, I did see those, and
I
Grant,
Oh, in the chat?
yeah, I can
Okay.
address them. Your first
Okay.
one was how far is our installation area? And
Yeah.
the quick answer is we don't go much south of St. Cloud just because there's so many installers in the metro. And just with our travel, we often get outbid. But pretty much north of St. Cloud, we are pretty much one and the same or a better price than other people. So I'm even going up to International Falls in a couple weeks. It's pretty far, but there's not a lot of solar installers up there. So, but our bread and butter is definitely between Bemidji and Brainerd, over to Grand Rapids, and then whatever the town on the the other direction is. I can't remember.
Detroit Lakes, perhaps.
Yes, Detroit Lakes. There we go. And then the other question was how much ongoing service does the typical solar system require? Cleaning, checking wires. Pretty much they are a low maintenance item. Like little fuses and things it's not entirely uncommon for little things to go out. And some inverters require replacement at 15 years. That's kind of the big ticket item. But it's becoming more and more common for all of the electronics, panels, inverters, etc., to be warranted for 25 years. So warranties are growing longer, and having them pretty maintenance free is the goal. But one nice thing is we install most of our systems with a monitoring platform, so you can go on your phone or your computer and see how the system's doing. And if they have microinverters, which is an inverter for every single panel, you can see exactly how each panel is doing day in and day out, every day of the year. So that's a way we're able to diagnose silly little issues.
Oh, that's great. Thank you for that redirection to the comments there. I appreciate that. So the other half of Bernie's question there is about obstacles. Are there obstacles that keep people from installing solar if they're interested?
I guess my quick answer would be the cost, just upfront cost. A lot of people are unable to pull out $30,000, but there are things that can help those people, such as financing. Right now, with interest rates being so low, a lot of my customers I've been working with are able to do a refinance or a kind of a home equity loan and get a really low rate, which helps. And then you just have your monthly payment. And then we've also started offering kind of solar specific loans. They're a little higher fee, higher interest, but they are a zero down product. So in certain situations, it helps people out. But as a lot of things, sometimes the best option is just paying for it up front. Oh, and then another one is siting challenges. I break a lot of hearts just with people with beautiful cabins on like Gull Lake, or the many lakes in our area, and they don't have a lot of property, but the property they do have is beautiful and covered with 100-year-old trees, and it's just covered in shade, and they don't have any room on the ground. So it's that and the money is probably the biggest challenge.
Thank you, Simon, for that. One other piece I can add to this too is in terms of the federal rebates, the tax incentives that exist. If you have a low tax liability, it's also not something you can take advantage of. So there are people who could probably afford a monthly payment that is supposed to replace your power bill, but don't have access to that monthly or to that federal tax incentive. So it's another piece of it.
Mhm.
And the last part of Simon's question here is, what can existing systems owners do to promote energy and promote solar in this industry? And Bernie, I think this is an excellent question, and we can follow up with you later about this too, because one thing that comes to my mind is, we as Real and Real Solar should probably do a little bit more to connect with folks we've already helped install solar arrays and make sure we're capturing their stories and sharing those stories as testimonials and so forth. Kyle and I were talking about this earlier, and he said in the past, Real's done events at people's homes too, once an array is in place. So that's the sort of thing that we should probably do a little bit more of. And Bernie, if that's something you're interested to, we should surely talk a little bit more about that, because I think that's a good idea. Anything else you guys would add in terms of, helping existing owners promote their arrays and promote solar?
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
I would like to know what, if a person puts in solar, what do they get paid for? Do they get paid from the power company? Does it the meter on the house or the meter at the street?
So we tie into the meter at the house. Well, sometimes people have meters all over the place, but we just tie in directly at the meter at the house, and it's a bi-directional meter, so it keeps track of what's going in and what's going out. And essentially at the end of the month, they tally up what you used and what you produced and bill you accordingly. So if you produced as much as you used, you would, have a very low bill. If you produced a little more, you would have a credit that could go towards the monthly hookup fee, or even go to the next month if it covered all that, or just take a chunk out of your bill. So that is how you see your money.
Can I ask that question again? If I have a production meter and a revenue meter, which one does the power company count?
Okay. Well, I guess I'm not sure what you mean by revenue and production, but when we install, most of the time there will be a production meter and then the bi-directional general service meter. So the production meter is kind of a way for the utility just to keep track of that exact, what is exactly coming out of this thing, because once it passes through that, it might go to your house or it might go back to the grid. So what is kept track of on the bi-directional meter isn't always 100% of what is coming out of the solar. If that makes sense. Does that answer your question?
Not quite, very close, but in Minneapolis, Xcel Energy pays off the energy that goes through the production meter.
Mm-hmm.
I was told that up north, they don't pay that way.
Okay. That's interesting. Yeah, it's a little, from what I've seen, it's a little different depending from one utility to the next. I've seen Crow Wing Power pay off of the production meter numbers before, but I've also seen them net, do the net bill before. And then I know for sure Minnesota Power, they just see what comes in and what comes out, and they will just bill you whatever's remaining, no matter what.
And that's the revenue meter, the bi-directional meter.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Daryl.
It's always sorry, one more thing is it's always nice because there are so many different utilities around here. Like I said, I'm very familiar with Crow Wing, very familiar with Minnesota Power, but there's Itasca Mantrap and Mille Lacs and Lake Country Power and East Central Power, and it does not hurt as a homeowner to call them yourself and just ask exactly what it's going to be like. And we do that for people too.
Yeah, and I've got calls from their offices too. They'll
Mhm.
chat me Otter Tail wherever, and sometimes they'll help us out.
Yep. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you, guys. We have another question in the comments here, and this was one submitted as well. Do you have any small portable emergency use solar arrays? we talked about this, Kyle, the small for emergency use or for camping or portable
Yeah.
system?
There's the small off-grid stuff is it can be tricky, and a lot of times cost prohibitive, but it depends on what exact size you're talking. I've been interested in some recent stuff that's been hitting the market, and as far as emergency use goes, it's really cool to see in like natural disaster events that they have all these like solar trailers with generators right on them that are ready to be hauled around from one place to another and used to help mitigate these things. I think that's awesome. But as far as like consumer side, if you're interested in like going that route, um, I've been interested in these like what they call solar generators. Different brands like let me look. Like if you just look up solar generator, Generac has portable units. Goal Zero is another popular brand. I think my brother has that one. Patriot Power, Blue Yeti is one that my friend recently got. He has like a camper living situation. I recently sold him a couple panels and some cable. And what these are is they're pretty inexpensive units that can accept solar power for a charging source, and they accept a very wide range of like wattage, voltage, amperage to go into the unit. So whether you have a single panel or a few of them, you can usually pair that size with one of these units just with an MC4 cable, and then within this box, it usually has like a built-in charge controller, inverter, yada yada, and all that with your different USB, DC, AC plugins. Very idyllic for camping, small use, and they seem pretty cool. Helping this friend out, he's been sending me videos of how his is doing, and it looks like it's working really well. And yeah, I'd be interested in even looking into it more for myself. But if you wanted something more elaborate, like for a cabin, and you wanted like a regular breaker box still with normal outlets, then it gets a little more complicated. And we've handled plenty of those inquiries and have even done some jobs like that. Sometimes they are cost prohibitive, but you need to track your exact usage, calculate the size of your battery bank, and from there determine how many days of autonomy you want to keep that battery bank charged up uh, with your solar panels. But for camping emergency use, I would highly recommend looking into brands like Generac, Blue Yeti, Goal Zero. Look at some of those solar generators that are now kind of really hitting and dominating the market.
Yeah. My quick thing is Real Solar specifically, we specialized in like bulletproof off-grid like cabins. Like they're essentially like $40,000 systems with big lead acid battery banks that will work, if it's -40 out and it's the middle of the winter. But we do get a lot of those inquiries from some small, just for small little cabin things or camping. And so we've actually started talking to Goal Zero to try to sell some of those products, but we are in a very early stage
Hey,
to
that's cool.
offer them ourselves. So, but it's just funny we mentioned that today.
Yeah, it's almost like there's the really small standalone solar units that aren't cost prohibitive, are probably good choices, and then if you're looking at anything larger size, you can really spend as much as you want. It can get pretty crazy.
Thanks, guys. So Simon, it sounds like down the road, Real Solar might have an offering there to be able to sell those products directly. Sounds good. But in the meantime, it's a solar generator, correct, Kyle?
Right.
Okay. Alrighty. So the next question here, John, this might be a good one for you. Marina would like to know more about solar gardens and what makes a property suitable, what the process and criteria is like for a solar garden. You're muted, John.
Hey, hi, Marina. I should let folks know that Marina is one of our board members. There she is. Um, also, we have another partner who's present today, who I'm meeting for the first time in the virtual flesh, Chip Pickering from Pickering and Associates. Chip is our partner who does the boots on the ground. There he is. That's what you look like. In our projects, we have a couple of projects that we're finishing up in Liberia with Chip. So it's good. It's good to see you, Chip. I hope I get to see you in person at some point here. Yeah. So I'm just starting to figure out community solar gardens. Generally they consist of subscriptions or a larger off taker. Generally, I've heard them up to 1 megawatt is what's considered a garden, 40 kilowatts to 1 megawatt. There's a bunch of them in Excel territory because Excel.
Oh, I think John bumped his mute button.
Yeah, you're muted, John.
Jeez. Gosh, this thing is touchy. I'm not even sure where I zoned out here.
Excel.
Yeah, Excel. So Excel's, there's a lot of community solar gardens in Excel territory. There's one up in Bemidji. They're scattered about. But I think we're coming into a phase where the other utilities are going to start producing community solar garden. There's a lot more interest at the state, at the Public Utility Commission level. And I think we're in a period where we're going to have to start to figure out how to get those produced in greater quantities. Of course, you want around 5 acres for something the size of a megawatt. You want to make sure that your current zoning, that it's a permitted use wherever you are. We were in pre-development on a 30-acre parcel with a community solar garden concept in Pequot Lakes. We had to get the zoning changed last year in Pequot Lakes to permit it, and now we're waiting for the Minnesota Power to reveal if they're interested in getting it in kind of their pipeline as a project. We'd be interested in doing, say half would be a commercial off taker and half we're interested in doing low income subscription projects, which would be consistent with our nonprofit vision of serving low income communities as much as possible in central and northern Minnesota. So I'm not a wealth of technical information on community solar gardens, but I do know that it's something that is of growing interest, and I think we're also at the beginning point of seeing a proliferation of these type of projects in Minnesota.
John, I've heard you talk before too about proximity to power lines and so forth. And is that
Yeah.
part of it too? Is that part of the equation?
Yeah, there would be a number of siting factors, but proximity to a substation, proximity to fairly large power lines. It would also, if the grid in the area needed the power, or if there was a future anticipated need, say if a industrial park was going to be built in Brainerd, they're going to need more power. So there's a number of and then there's all the topographical and soil related considerations. There's a number of much larger organizations, companies than REAL and REAL Solar that specialize in projects these size.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So let's talk about battery storage a little bit. Simon and John, maybe you guys are points for this question. How many of our projects involve battery energy storage, and is there significant interest in energy storage, and or do prices need to fall before that becomes more of an issue for most homeowners?
Yeah, we probably do real solar like 1 to 2 battery related projects a year. But at least right now, I even have like 3 or 4 inquiries of very interested parties in having home backup. So, long story short, so if you have a grid tied system for selling back power, if you want some resiliency and home backup, it's around $10,000 extra to add on. But then if if you are in a cabin like way out in the woods that doesn't even have electricity, it's kind of its own whole little world. But essentially, we do 1 or 2 of those a year, and I think interest is going up in general. Prices are coming down. Technology's getting a lot better. It seems like there's a new product out every other month, and it seems like every solar company out there in the world is trying to get their hands on something. Like Generac just came out with something. They're just a big generator company. But one more thing is a lot of people in this area see that $10,000 price tag and they're just like, well, I have an outage once a year. I'm just going to buy a generator. And I, I can't do anything about that. But, if you want clean backup source of power, it's definitely an elegant solution. It's just a little expensive right now. Yeah.
Thanks, Simon. So the next question is obviously for you too, Simon. Who can provide a solar assessment for somebody's property?
Me. Just call our office or email info@realsolar or go on our website. And there's a get a quote tab with a few questions that help prime myself or my colleague John, who's our other sales guy. And we can give you a call and go from there.
Thanks, Simon. I just added that link there to the comment sections as well too. So folks are listening and want to get a quote, you can fill out that survey right now. The next piece of that is about a product known as Smart Flower. Simon, you had some experience with that?
I just know what they are. We, I guess, in our little work culture and design culture, we really value bang for your buck. I don't know what smart flowers cost or really kind of what they entail. I'm just kind of familiar, and we like to install things that are very solid state and are going to last you a long time. And my knowledge of those smart flowers is there's a lot of moving parts. It's kind of like it tracks the sun as things go on, and in the middle of the winter, if that thing's covered in ice, something's bound to break, and you might have some more maintenance with something like that than your typical solar array. So our take is you can install something that's just solid state sitting there, and you can get a lot more bang for that money you're putting into it. And there are different types of racking that can be integrated into your yard or garden or your roof that will look pretty nice. So yeah.
So Real
And
Solar
could be
has
tracking
smart solutions.
reusable. Sorry, I cut you off, Jennifer.
No, that's okay. That's okay. Okay, so one other question here, I think maybe for John or Simon. What does it mean when a substation doesn't have enough distribution capacity for a solar garden?
John, you want to tackle that one? My answer is I guess I would leave it up to the utilities engineer or the grid engineer to explain that, because I'm no transmission expert. But John spoke to it a little bit before. And
When when you inquire about a solar garden, you pay the utility company what's called to do a preliminary study, and that's one of the determinations that they make. It's just basically their first quick take on what it would mean for them, for their infrastructure, if you did what you were suggesting. So
yep, and that's the large scale
company. Yeah.
Yep, and that's on the large scale. Every interconnection application we submit, they do a little bit of a study, and
Right.
most of the time you just have to upgrade your transformer or something little.
Right.
Okay, thank you guys. Well, we are nearing 6 o'clock here, so I want to take us toward wrapping up here. If there are any other questions, please do raise your hand or submit them in the chat, and we'll try to get to them. But Simon, as we wind down here, can you just talk a little bit about big projects or exciting news on the horizon for Real Solar?
Yeah, well, I think next week we are commissioning all the White Earth projects, which was 200 kilowatts of ground mount solar we installed over the course of the winter. So that was a huge project. And then you guys will be kind of taking the torch on that one from here on out. And then we've just been working hard on building our pipeline for the rest of the year. A bunch of residential projects queued up and lots of inquiries. And then we've brought on a bunch of new things. We're just trying to modernize our offerings. So we now have a relationship with a solar lender, and I just contracted a project with that type of loan, which would be exciting. And we're trying to like I said, I have a few inquiries about the battery backup systems. So we've been doing a lot of research on what the best options for that is, and just trying to stay on top of things and keep this ball rolling.
Awesome, thank you. And John, similarly, we talk a lot about the clean energy economy and what that means for greater Minnesota and future opportunities. Can you talk a little bit about that and what's on the horizon for Real?
Yeah, our major initiative is what we're calling Northwind Sun Partners, which is our partnership with the White Earth Nation and Habitat, the White Earth Tribal and Community College. We've also created a nonprofit community development corporation to serve the White Earth area. And I think that is going to be our major emphasis for the next few years. It's White Earth is located about 70 miles north of Fergus Falls, where they're decommissioning the Hoot Lake coal plant. There's also a massive coal plant in Sartell that's being decommissioned. And I don't know if you read in the Star Tribune or other papers that Xcel has proposed a $575 million solar farm to be their first big step to replace that coal power, but also the coal jobs. So when you take a look at what's going on the federal level, when you take a look at the potential for different materials being used as the solar panels of the future, I think we are in a place where we want to play a role in generating as much solar and solar trained folks in central northern Minnesota as possible, because the train has left the station and it's coming our way. So that's what we're gonna be about. Plus the tribe really, their dream is to have energy sovereignty. They have 60% of their power. The White Earth tribe comes from the Hoot Lake coal plant. There's nobody from the tribe that even works for Otter Tail Power. So it's jobs and energy sovereignty is what we're going to be working with the tribes on. And then when you look at Real Solar, about maybe 40% of Real Solar's work comes through the nonprofit, through Real, at least at this point, like that 200 kilowatt project at White Earth that Simon mentioned. And then I have every expectation that Real Solar is going to be growing as a business, having survived its formative startup years. You always hear those dreadful statistics about small businesses. 70% are done after 5 years. Well, they've made their way through kind of the crucible of their startup experience. So I fully expect that they're gonna grow in their production in the next few years.
Thanks, John. Yeah, so that's a bit about what Real's up to, what Real Solar is up to, and what's on the horizon here. We've got big plans and big ideas about bringing solar to communities and households, no matter their income level. So that's it. Unless there's anything else, any other comments or questions, feel free to raise your hand or unmute yourself and and chime in here. We are grateful that you all joined us tonight. I added, as you know, REAL's a nonprofit, so we rely on support from folks who understand the power of solar energy. I added a donation link to the comments there. If you've got a couple bucks, we are grateful for your time and energy and support, and really happy to be in this work with you. So we'll be in touch, and thanks all for joining us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, take care. Cheers all.
Thanks, everyone.
See you. Thanks.
Thank
Oh,
you.
what do you have there, Kyle?
Pinot Noir.
Good for you.
Yeah, yeah.
Are you sitting right outside of the office?
Yep.